Good morning, folks. Welcome back to Three's End. This story is about a mission that Jim Knoll once flew with a student at Vance. And when he came back to the section commander's office, he was just spitting nails. Now, Jim Knoll was one of the most laid-back, easygoing instructors that we had. He was about 2.5, 3 years senior to me. And I looked up to him. I just really enjoyed being around Jim. At any rate, we were all hanging out in the section commander's office this one day when Jim walked in, and he was fit to be tied. You could tell it from the moment he walked in. And somebody said, "Hey, Jimmy, what's going on?" He says, "Man," he says, "I need to take leave." He says, "These guys are just getting to me." Well, what happened? What's up? He said, "I was up flying with one of our whiners." Now, that happened on occasion, not often, but every now and then we'd get some kid that was just a whiner. Anyway, and Jim went on to say he had an excuse for not doing this or for doing that, just an excuse about everything. He says, throughout the flight it went like that. And he says, we got back to the traffic pattern, did a touch and go. And on the way up in the closed pattern, he said, I told him to go ahead and set up for a no-flap traffic pattern. Well, he said, this kid started whining about not having the time to calculate the no-flap final turn and final approach speed. This, that, and the other. And Jim says, I just lost it. He says, I took the airplane at that time. I said, okay, I've heard enough. He says, this flight is over. I've got the airplane. So he says, I am just so sick and tired of you guys whining instead of owning up to anything. And he says, just a minute, gear down, flaps down. He says, I can't remember what our call sign is, Reno 17, gear check, full stop. And he says, he goes back, he pushes the power in. He says, I'm starting the final turn. He says, I'm going around the final turn just chewing this kid out. He says, he says, I like I said, I am just sick of you guys not owning up to anything. And he says, I've just about had it. He says, I look at my finger and he says, what in the world am I doing? So he looked over at the airspeed, added a little bit of power. He said, just once, Fornash, he says, I'd like to see one of you guys own up to something. If you screwed up, just admit, sir, I screwed up. He says at that point, he's about 2/3 of the way through the final turn, still flying the airplane. He says this kid takes his head, puts it back against the headrest, and assumes the position of attention. He says, sir, I screwed up. And he says at that point, that's when, not now, Fornash, Jesus. So he went ahead and landed touchdown. And then taxied into the parking. So he gets unstrapped, takes the kid in, debriefs him, and then comes into our room, section commander's office, and tells us this story. So from then on, for about a couple of weeks, we see Jimmy in the hall and just under our breath, just whisper, "Not now, Fornash." So I had never met Fornash, but man, he gained infamous fame there at Vance for a couple of years, I suppose. We'd be in a staff meeting, somebody'd start whining about something. We'd look at Null and Null and go, "Not now, Fornash." At any rate, good story from a good guy. I love him dearly. Talk to you later.